Wow, you joined pretty quick there, MPT. Hi, everybody. I've just doing a lunchtime live, and I will talk to you about anything you want me to talk to you about, generally to do with paranormal, aliens, etc., ancient history, true ancient history. So this will go on to YouTube as always for those that follow me on YouTube and watch the live chats. So, as always, I will start talking unless someone asks me a question. I was going to, as always, at the moment, while I'm dealing with the Anunnaki, talk a bit about the Anunnaki. Unless you ask me a question, then I'll stop. So, Ayana, who was an offspring of Enlil's way down the line, she plays a huge, important role in our history. Sorry, I've got a question here from Five Dear Thing. How did humans evolve? So, yes, I totally believe in evolution. The only reason why people would not believe in evolution is because obviously there's a missing link for humans. So when you look at the ancient texts, it basically says that a race of beings called the Anunnaki, well, it's not actually their real name's the Elohim, but the ones that came to Earth were called Anunnaki by their god, or by their king, as sort of a team name, really, shall we say. And they, over time, created the first modern human, the first Homo sapiens sapien. Prior to that, you had Neanderthals, Homo erectus, all those kind of things. So if you follow that lineage back, then yes, that there is totally evolution there. Obviously, once you get to Neanderthals, suddenly there's a jump and there's that missing link, which obviously we can put down to the Anunnaki, and we've also got fused chromosomes compared to the Neanderthals and the monkeys and chimpanzees. And bear in mind, I know mainstream say that we come from monkeys or apes, but we have actually more in common with pigs than we do with monkeys. So, and the reason for that actually is because down the line, about 8 to 10,000 years ago, the Anunnaki were apparently running short on food, so they crossbred they crossbred wild boar with humans, using DNA, etc., which created the domesticated pig, which is what they was using then for food. But the domesticated pig has something like 60 different things, not very similar, exactly the same as us: teeth, skin, the innards, and so on. So evolution works to the point of humans. So that's sort of where humans came from, if you're referring to humans. I'm just scrolling down. Sorry. What happens when we die? A couple of things can happen. One is you're sent back to your body because it's not your time and you can still survive, and they send you back. Two, you can just sit around here, which, Earth, you can travel off to the moon in a blink of an eye. So you can stay around if you want. Three, you can cross over to the light. If you cross over to the light, that's another plane of existence you're crossing over to. Then you pretty much, you or your personality that was with the spirit gets pushed back. Then the spirit then goes into another baby, into their pineal gland, 3 to 4 months when they're being born. And then obviously that then is basically a hard drive, really. It gets a copy of you. So when that child grows up, your personality is the one behind theirs, and then there's someone behind you. So that's how you get reincarnation. So that's another thing that happens. Also, there is many reports of a time loop glitch for ghosts or spirits that leave their body, where they just repeat something over and over, for eternity, and it's very difficult for them to realize that they're actually stuck in a loop. So there's a few things that happen when you die. Five Deer thing as wrote. Sorry, I cut you off talking about the anarchy. No problem at all. No, so Ayana, she's a bit of a. Apparently, she was gorgeous. So you could say that she was Aphrodite in some respects. She was actually gorgeous. She was supposed to marry, or did marry, Zeus, but he died. Then there was a long feud between her and Marduk. But the reason why she's a piece of work is she actually manipulated Enki to take the MEs, which we're not 100% sure what it is, but reading between the lines, it's to do with how he created the modern humans. So in other words, it's the information on how to manipulate DNA, etc. So she actually persuaded him one day deliberately. She got him drunk and everything, Enki. And she kept 7 times, it says in the ancient tablets, that she asked for these ME tablets. Now, when we say tablets, if you watch my other videos, you realise that there's more than one tablet. And although we've got tablets in clay stone here, they describe writing on a device, so like an electronic type device. So they did have obviously other devices, but obviously the ones that they wanted to keep for a long time, they done in stone or clay tablets. But she done that, and when Enki woke up, he found out that his tablets were missing, even though technically he gave them to her. He summoned her back. She'd hid them and all this kind of stuff. So she's a piece of work. But the reason why she's more of a piece of work is she is the one that instigated the nuclear weapons back between 4,000 and 5,000 years ago, that wiped out many cities in the hunt for Marduk. However, he wasn't actually in any of the cities that they wiped out. So I'll be doing videos more thorough on that. But she is she's not very nice. Quite happy to kill people and animals and everything. She was so. Exposures wrote, there's no scientific evidence that God exists. So when you say God, are you referring to the creator of everything, or are you referring to the Anunnaki? Now, the Anunnaki, yes, there's scientific evidence. There's the statues, there's the writings, there's the skulls, there's the giant skeleton. So the Anunnaki were here. There's no, that's it. Everyone agrees that they were here. Now, whether or not everyone agrees that they come from the planet Nibiru is a different matter, but they were classed as gods. So one way or another, they're the ones in the Bible that we talk about. However, the Bible's not 100% accurate, as we know. But anyway, now if you're referring to the creator of everything, there is no scientific proof for that. And I totally agree with you. The ancient texts, thank you for the hearts that I can see flying up. The ancient texts talk about the Anunnaki talking about the creator of everything. So that's pretty significant because, they are, and probably still are, highly more evolved than us. So if they're talking about a creator of everything, then one should listen to what they got to say. I struggle with the one creator of everything, but I'm not stupid enough to block out what the ancient texts from an alien race that's far more civilized and with their understandings and everything than me. So if I will listen to what they have to say. Verts wrote, when is the Gov going to admit that they've been working with aliens and they live in caves deep in the earth? They're not really. There was supposed to be last year the disclosure, and all they've done was pretty much come out and said that there's UFOs that they don't know where they're coming from. But, roll back to 1947, news conference with a general actually said the same thing. We don't know where they're coming from. This. So, they've had 40, 50, 60 years of not knowing where these UFOs come from. So don't take an Einstein to work out, hang on a minute, they're not landing in China, they're not landing in Russia, so it's probably not them. They're flying off upwards into space. Yeah, so then they're not going to disclose Because if they do, then they have to admit that our religions are wrong. They'll have to admit that aliens have been abducting people against their will and allowed by President Eisenhower. So then they can't do that. You know, there is people in MJ-12, which is the Majestic 12, which was set up a long time ago in the late 40s to try and stop the secret military complex from doing what they ended up doing, which was basically doing whatever they wanted to do with aliens and craft and everything. So MJ-12 was set up. So there's some people now in MJ-12 that are apparently trying to help people such as Tom DeLonge from Blink 182, I think it is, help him, and Pastido, the guy, one of the guys from America. I forgive me for not knowing American people's names properly, but yeah, they are trying to get the information out. But I don't think it'll never come from the government. Not like that anyway. Just scrolling down. Sorry, people are talking to people. How do you cross to the light? How can I use the force? That's from Marvin. So when you say cross to the light, so when you die, so you've heard of priests and things going and exorcisms going to, and they say to the spirits, go to the light, cross over, and that basically means that they're not here on this plane anymore, and they'll cross over. And there's many planes of existence, but that the next one up would be the one where you would die in terms of your personality, and you not die, but it's just not there anymore. So if you want to cross straight over to the light, and I probably do, I'll if I die, first thing I'm going to do is try and take out a couple of the elites, whatever way, to help you guys survive. And I'll try and get as many spirits with me to do the same thing, push them down the bloody stairs. And then I will bug out, and go off straight away to the light. I mean, I'd rather not die, not be a spirit at all, but I probably not got a choice. So how do you get to the light? You can see your loved ones. They'll direct you to it. From what I understand is it's there. It's just whether or not you are ready to cross over. And some people are not. Now that goes back to, where people say, oh, it's all loving when you cross over and everything. Yes, it is, but you still have your regrets. You still have, and there's, you can ask any clairvoyant or medium, and they'll say that a loved one comes through and says, I'm so sorry I killed myself, or I'm so sorry that I did this, or I'm so sorry. And they have guilt. They have feelings on the other side. So, it's not all sweet and roses. Yes, maybe on the plane above, the next plane, but when you pass over, it's not what you think it is. You especially if you stay around, because you get to see everything from every angle. Because you have the ability to travel in time. That's why you can ask the spirit what's going to happen to me in the future. So, sorry, just scrolling down. Okay, someone's asking me a question about Norwich Town, City Town Centre, because I've asked me about, and they've decided to add something that I probably wouldn't know about. Fudgers wrote, hi, do you think Billy Meyer pictures and videos are real? I do. You have to take into a bit of logic when dealing with this. Now, the guy only has came to popularity because of another guy that looked into his case, and bearing in mind Billy Meyer's in Switzerland, if I'm not mistaken. So this guy, Mr. Horn, I can't remember his first name, Tom Horn or something like that. He's the one that picked up the mantle of what Billy Meyer's saying. And he's made Billy Meyer, very popular showing his pictures, and Billy Myers, for those of you who don't know, has been visited by Palladians pretty much since his childhood, and they've allowed him to take photographs of their craft taking off and coming in and whatever. And supposedly there's a picture of some of the Palladians. Now, the picture is on the internet, as far as it was when I last looked. Now, the problem is you've got people that have seen one of the women of the Palladians in the photograph, and they've found some old TV program and said, look, this woman looks like her. That's it. It's fake. You know, I could show you pictures of people that look like bloody, you know, Tom Cruise, or, you know, just because they look like someone doesn't mean it's actually them. So, Billy Meyer, you know, he's wrote down, things that's happened since. So when he was being basically given information by the, Palladians of what's going to happen and stuff, they even told him that he's going to lose one of his arms in the future, and he did. So that then proves that, you know, there's no free will, because if it's already happened and it did, then, you know, and he knew about it, he obviously couldn't stop it. So therefore, if you watch my other videos where I talk about free will, you'll realize that we've already been round once. So one of us, you know, this scenario we're on now has already been round once. So the first time they had free will, and that's what happened. Now we're just literally repeating it over and over. Yeah, Billy Meyer, I think is on the level. I could go into it more, but there's 50 messages. So, if you need to know something more specific about Billy Meyer, let me know and I'll try and talk. And just scrolling down. What are your thoughts on DMT? I've had some very crazy experiences on DMT, like astral protection. I don't know what DMT is. If it's some sort of drug thing, I do avoid learning anything to do with that kind of stuff. I only found out what weed smelt like when both my neighbours frickin' started smoking it. So I wouldn't know. But in terms of having a substance that can take you out of your body, yes, I do believe that that's a real thing. I mean, if you go back to Egyptian times, and obviously the Egyptians were taught by the Anunnaki, you know, with the afterlife and everything else, on how to communicate with them. They do use some chemicals or plants or whatever it was back then. So yes, you know, there is ways of getting out of your body. And I think what actually happens is, this is just my take on it, is, so the spirit joins with you when you're 3 to 4 months, and joins with your pineal gland in your brain. Have a look it up if you don't know what that is. It's got certain, it's actually a receiver and transmitter as well. So that makes a lot of sense. But, anyway, what I think happens is, just like when you're about to die, or you are dying, or you die, obviously your blood stops going to your pineal gland. And that's when the spirit says, right, okay, this person's dead, I'm off. Now, you know, people can be revived, as you know. And if they can be revived, then the spirit probably gets told, hey, you know, get back into that body now. So I think certain drugs probably inhibit the pineal gland having blood, and therefore the spirit just thinks, okay, this person's either in a coma or whatever, and then they can be more free the spirit can be more free to float off and astral project. Is quantum physics real? Yes, I would say so. Yeah. I mean, I've looked into, you know, quantum mechanics, quantum theories and things like that. I think there is an element to that. Yeah. Our understanding isn't there yet, but I think, you know, looking at what aliens can do, I think they've obviously been there and done that with the quantum side of things. So, I think our military, bearing in mind, is probably now 60 to 100 years ahead of us. Back in the 80s, it was 40 years ahead of us. And I'm on about the secret military that back engineer everything. So they're probably more than even 100 years ahead of us. So, if quantum side of it is real, they've been probably dealing with it for the last 15, 20 years, the secret military. So, I do. I think there's elements where, the quantum entanglement and things like that, I'm on the side that I think that's actually a possibility. Yeah. Ali has wrote, this is a waste if you want to learn about the afterlife in pure detail, look into Islam. So, interestingly, the Quran actually talks about, I don't know why you're saying it's a waste, because I actually are talking about the same thing. So the Quran says that your soul joins with you in 3 to 4 months which is exactly what I've just said. So maybe Islam, just like the Bible, gets things wrong, and they do. The Bible, I could show you the ancient text that predates the Bible, which makes more sense than the Bible, and can be backed up with locations, etc., unlike the Bible. So pretty much any Bible of any description is all based on the ancient text. And when you read the ancient text and you realize there's spirits and everything else, that's where you get your information from, not the Bible or Islam or Quran, because they are copies, and they are. There's no ways around it. And then you can talk to spiritualists, which is what I do, mediums, etc., etc. And, I don't take the first thing that they say. I listen, and then if, enough of them all say the same thing, and they all not knowing each other, then you start to piece together how the afterlife works. So, I wouldn't recommend looking into Islam. I would recommend going to clairvoyants, mediums, remote viewers, those type of people, because they're the ones that can tell you exactly what's happening now, as opposed to a copy of an original ancient text. Marvin's right. How do you know this stuff? 30 years plus of research dealing with all these kind of things. Been on many radio shows in the States, hour-long ones, waffling on about all this kind of stuff. Some people say, well, what's your qualification? What university did you go to? And when you realize that universities are funded by, wait for it, you get that, it goes all back to the elites. And then the elites, such as the Rockefellers, so when you realise that they don't want this information out, you realise then that universities, etc., are being taught, what their agenda is, as opposed to what's really happened in the past. My experiences and my knowledge far exceeds anything from any university or anything like that, because I know stuff that they don't, because they don't want to give it out, I'm not saying I'm big-headed, but anyone that's, does a tiny bit of research and looks into giant skeletons and stuff like that, and I'm on about proper research, not just quick Google, you realize that, these things existed, etc. So when you realize that, and then you realize that universities and colleges and stuff do not tell you these things existed, then you realize there's a discrepancy. So that's why I say my knowledge is superior for these subjects than anyone that went to university. So that's my qualifications. Just scrolling down. When I start astral travel, what exactly leaves my body? So there's an energy orb. It's an entity. It's a light being. You can pretty much call it what you want. People call them souls, spirits, but it's hard. It's just a light energy being that's eternal. And that joins with your pineal gland. And there's one particular case, I'm just going to throw it out there, where someone was regressed, and past life regression, and they was talking under hypnosis and saying that their spirit was going towards the mother's body, in other words, the energy orb, was going towards the mother's body and could see one coming out, leaving. And cut a long story short, it turns out that the baby, had died in the mother's womb. He found out, obviously, as he got older. And that means that the entity that was going into his womb first, or was joined with him, thought that he was going to die, and the entity left. But as the doctors managed to resuscitate it, another entity came in and took its place. And that's where you get people that have these near-death experiences that can suddenly play piano, suddenly paint. It's the past life from the person before. So the near-death experience is the same thing, where the spirit has left that person and another spirit's come back in because the person's now suddenly been resuscitated. And you've got a different entity that joined with you from the one you had all your life. And the one that's now joined with you has different memories from previous lives. So just scrolling down. Glad I caught you from mid. Can you recommend any books or videos that explain all this info? The only book I know of that covers all the sort of pretty much most of the top subjects that I cover. Normally there's a lot of books. I could recommend hundreds of books that individually cover things. But the only one that I'm aware of that covers, pretty much most of these things is called, I don't know if you've got a pen and piece of paper, and it's on Amazon. It's called, trying to remember the name. It's a long name. They've obviously, used it for keywords, but it's Black Ops, Aliens, Spirits, Bigfoot, and Our Untold History. So Black Ops, Aliens, Spirits, Bigfoot, and Our Untold History. It's on Amazon. That covers, if you're after one book that covers most things, that's the one. If you're after more specific things like crop circles or greys or whatever, let me know what ones you're more specifically interested. But that is probably the best book I would recommend as a whole, because it covers everything, just like I do in a chronological order, and it connects why the Bigfoots are connected. It connects everything together very well. Good morning to Anthony. Is Anu the very first being next to the source? No, Anu is just a king. So Nibiru's been around for a long time, and had many kings, etc. They had many wars back, in its ancient past. But Alalula was a king before Anu. So these are just basically Anunnaki or Elohim, if you want to call them their real name. These are just, Anunnaki, I call them Anunnaki, on their own planet. And Alalula pushed out the window the previous king, and then Anu had a wrestling match with Alalula to become king. So Anu became king. So yeah, there's no creation or anything with Anu. Sorry, someone's putting their music in the car. I'm in a car at the moment. Good afternoon. Are aliens and Bigfoot interdimensional beings? Aliens, yes. Bigfoot, there's two lots of Bigfoots. You've got the ones that stuck on Earth, from a prison ship about 10 to 20,000 years ago. Probably more 10, because of the land barrier that they could actually cross over to Russia, etc., which is why you get sighting of them in Himalayas and stuff like that. But those ones that landed here or crashed here from prison ship, they can't obviously interdimensionally travel, otherwise they wouldn't be here no more. No one wants to be shot at by game hunters in forests in America, so they can't. But the other ones that obviously have their own planet, that fly around and have been seen with the little greys and whatever else, whether or not they can interdimensionally travel, I don't know, or whether they need the greys to interdimensionally travel, or another species of alien to interdimensionally travel. I don't know. But not the ones here on Earth, otherwise they wouldn't be shot and chased and stand dead still, hiding behind a tree or crouching down or throwing rocks at people. So when you work that out, you realise that, yeah, these ones is definitely stuck here. There's not a lot they can do. Why was she not punished? I'm guessing you're on about Ayana. I guess because she's very pretty. Now, the King Anu, when he came down prior to her stealing manipulating and getting this information from Enki, Anu came down, King Anu came down, and they'd built him a 7-story building in his honour, obviously knowing he's coming, and so they built that for him. But while he was here, Ayana came over and visited him, and in the ancient text, he took a liking to her. He hugged her, he kissed her. Doesn't say whether anything else happened, but he hugged her and kissed her and took a liking to her. And when he left, he said, "She can have my building." So she was well in there. So she didn't really get punished, because I think she was now Anu's favourite, but obviously Anu left to go back up to Nibiru. But yeah, she's a very manipulative person. There's probably other things she's done that they didn't write down, but yeah, I wouldn't trust her. Mid has wrote source energy. Kind of need a more specific question, because I could waffle on about energy and frequencies, and then you might be on about, how a spaceship works for all I know. So if you do have a question, try and make it more. Gray has wrote the Bible is about 1% accurate. Yeah, I mean, it tries. I mean, there's just using the bit where it talks about a plague that caused, because they don't know back then, that caused the flesh to rot and things like that, and the wind that came. We know now, especially when you can translate the tablets, we know now that there was nuclear war, or nuclear weapons used, that caused, in the tablet, it totally describes how people died, the nearer to the blast they were incinerated and so on. And then the winds took, and even the Anunnaki had to bug out when they realized the winds were coming with radiation. So, the Bible, whoever got that information, whether they translated the tablets or whether they was, Chinese whispers heard it from ancient stories, you realize that the Bible has got it wrong in places, so it wasn't a plague, but, they're limited understanding. That's why when I get people post up on my comments and say, the Bible this and the Bible that, I kind of try and educate them and say, are you aware of these ancient tablets that actually say everything clearly, and methodically, unlike the Bible? And they just disappear, these people, because I don't know whether they're sort of, and I don't mean to sound rude, but it's sort of brainwashed into something as opposed to looking at the wider picture. It's sad, but I don't mean to sound rude, but sometimes you do have to. Smiles wrote, "Do you believe in the 7 firmaments?" I'm not heard of 7 firmaments. I'm wondering if you're referring to the firmament dome theory that's over Earth. I've not heard of 7 firmaments. Sorry. Are the Anunnaki still on Earth? That's from 5 Deer. That's the $1 million question. So, when Anu came down last, and spoke to him, I won't bore you about the Galzu and stuff like that. But anyway, the Anunnaki had aged, and now we considerably compared to the Anunnaki left on Nibiru. So, now that at that point, or prior to that, they was going to stay on Earth. Now, when Anu came down, he said to them, actually, we have elixir that can cure the problem. In other words, the aging problem. Now, whether that would work with, the 3 main children that came down first, because they were now, like the daughter was now hunched over and all wrinkly, whether or not that elixir can actually reverse the aging process. Now, I know we've all got the stories of the Fountain of Youth and everything. So And in fact, the Fountain of Youth story comes from the ancient texts. Yes, I know. It's amazing what the ancient texts tell you. And it was a plant underwater. Anyway, I digress. But so when Anu came down, they, cut a long story short, they agreed that humans should inherit the earth. And that's when they started teaching us. But they also agreed that once they've taught us, they would leave us alone. But there's certain people in the stories, such as Iana and Marduk, that I can't imagine would want to go back to Nibiru with no land, no power. So I think, and the Aegis did marry human women, but obviously their lifespan, which is the Aegis are just sort of young adult Anunnaki, their lifespan would have outlived the human wives that they had when they first took them. So there's a possibility they may have went back to the home planet, but I think my logic would say that people like Marduk and Iana would have carried on trying to control people, and probably still do now. So some, I think, stayed here. I.P. Browns wrote the actual name of the book that I was talking about, and she's also wrote anything to do with Zecharia Sitchin is also worth looking at. Totally agree. Gray has wrote, religious leaders have asked how to announce the existence of aliens to the world. Yes, yeah, the Vatican and things like that, the Pope, are all talking about. And in fact, they fairly recently set up a task force. Now, what's interesting is, because I've been doing this for a very long time, I'd heard this back in the very early 90s that they set up a task force to deal with what would happen with, when aliens come down, they would need ambassadors and things to deal with them. So it's not a new thing. It's not something that they've just suddenly thrown out there. I remember it from, let's say, from the early 90s. So, but, you've also got to remember, keep in mind Project Bluebeam, where that is a holographic representation of something that's so believable that we could end up believing. And the stories go that the elites want to do a holographic simulation of an alien attack on Earth, and then we all run and say, oh yes, hide us in these concentration camps that you're now building. So you have to take, where they're pushing the narrative of aliens. News reports are still talking about them now. You just keep that Project Bluebeam in the back of your head. Have you heard of the Galactic Federation? Yes. It's from Smiles. If there's a question to that, because I could waffle on about who's in it, I could go on for hours. Sorry. Try and, but yes, I have. University has wrote no scientific proof, but the Queen believes in God, the creator of all. Well, interestingly, the Queen has the crown and scepter, which is what the Anunnaki first gave to the first king so they have kingships on Nibiru, obviously, because you've got King Anu, and they decided to bestow that on the first person here on Earth, when they realized that they was going to let Earthlings inherit the Earth. I'm still on the fence on the one almighty being, but I do try and listen to as much as I can to make my own decisions. Universities wrote, and the anthem sings God Save the Queen. Yeah. Now, I don't know whether that God is them talking about the Anunnaki, because obviously they were the ones that bestowed the kingship and stuff, or whether they're talking about the creator of everything, just like the Anunnaki talk about. It's a good point you brought up there. Gray has wrote, extraterrestrial activity has been taking place on this planet for millennia. Yes. Well, the easiest way to know how long the aliens have been here is the crash ship, or when I say crashed, the ship in Antarctica that's buried in ice, but sitting on green grass. So in other words, it landed prior to the ice shelf, the ice, covering it. And so when you work out the calculations of that, it was way before the Anunnaki. So yeah, some aliens have definitely been coming here for that amount of time. Whether or not they kept coming back or whether it was just a one-off, I don't know. Hippie has wrote, John Lear is a great source of information. He very is. Yes, he was, he's a very good friend of, you know who, the guy with glasses, Bob Lazar, that's it, yeah. Yeah, John Lear is very, yeah, his dad was the guy that created, the Learjet, which I found very interesting. And John Lear apparently can fly virtually any plane. And used to work for, if I'm not mistaken, if I am, let me know, but I used to do, secret runs for, sort of the Black Op type things, if I'm not mistaken. So he's, that's why he's probably got a lot of information as well. Seven has wrote, I see quite a similarity between the Anunnaki and the pharaohs. Well, yeah, I mean, I'm getting to those in the videos as to how the pharaohs became, and who they are. Now, the Anunnaki, if you read the ancient text, for example, tablet 12, when they're talking about the Egyptians, they talk about them as black-headed people. Again, no freaking racism there. I'm just telling you that that's what they described them as. So it's good because we can work out who they're actually talking about at that point in time. So yeah, there is, yeah. Lucky's wrote, from before you said 3 things you can do, I missed the first 2. You said, could you, reiterate? Before you said 3 things you can do. Oh, to do with the spirits. Is that, if that's what you're referring to? I will put this on YouTube, but if I'm wrong, the 3 things very quickly then is stay around, cross over to the next plane, or get stuck in a loop where you just don't know that you're dead basically, and you just keep repeating something over and over. It's like walking through a wall or whatever, you're walking down the street. Okay. Mid has wrote, do you know what DNA markers the hybrids have? I don't. I know obviously there is hybrids. I don't know what DNA markers they would have. Someone would have to grab a hybrid and dissect them and take the DNA and know what they, yeah. So I don't know that. The nose has sent a rose. Ah, thank you. Can you see things when you're, on the other side, like the future? And that's from NN. Yes. Yeah, you can travel backwards, forwards. Certain things you can't do. So, for example, it seems that there's rules on the other side. So you can't go and push a person down the stairs, a human. You can't interfere with human lives, and there's certain other things that I'm just trying to remember them now, that clairvoyants have said when they've asked them, the spirit has turned around and said, I cannot answer that, or I won't answer that. And they're all to do with the same sort of thing, I forgive me, I can't remember off the top of my head what they were, but so yeah, you can see the future, and that's the problem. There's people out there that have seen, or spirits out there that have seen their child die, even though the child's still living. They can see the future and see how that child died and everything, and it tears them right up, which is another reason why I would rather just, cross straight over after trying to take out the elites. Gray has wrote, extraterrestrial activity has been taking place on this planet for millennia. Yeah, that's right. Religious leaders have been asked how to announce. Yeah, read that. Sorry, I don't know if I've actually flipped back or you've repeated it. Gray has wrote, there's a plethora of evidence for the existence of aliens. It's insanity not to believe. Yeah, I'm with you on that. totally with you. I mean, just, again, I keep saying, if you take all the people that's been abducted and put them into a courtroom, as eyewitnesses, they would win the case. Someone's asked him what was said about Norwich. I can't see the comment. I'm near Norwich. Someone asked me, what do I think is going to happen in the future to Norwich Town City? And unfortunately, I'm not in Norwich, so I wouldn't know. I don't know whether that person was being funny or whether they thought I was from Norwich. NN has wrote, can you see the future on the other side? Yes, I mentioned that. How comes the Egyptians were greeted with a Abneki, but not the Babylonians, or am I wrong? I'm not sure what Abenaki is. Is that meant to be an Anunnaki? Because the Babylonians were actually before the Egyptians, believe it or not, according to the ancient texts, and so were the Aramaic. The Egyptians, in terms of their full proper civilization, yes, we know the pyramids were old, but when Marduk started to take over, that's when you had the proper Egyptians doing their bits. And that was, 4,000 to 5,000 years ago. So prior to that, you had the Babylonians and some of the other states. So basically, the reason why we know that is because King Anu, when he came down the last time, gave territories to people. If you watch my last video, actually, I'll talk about it. Or regions, as it's translated. And Enki got a particular region, Enlil got a particular region, and Ayana got given a particular region, and then the remaining Anunnakis had their own thing. And what they done was they went through the different regions, one in order, each one. So the first one was Eridu, Mesopotamia, Sumer. That's where they started to do everything, teach people laws and stuff like that. Then they moved on to the next one, and then obviously Ayana was getting annoyed and frustrated, because you've got to remember, we're not talking days, we're talking hundreds of years, because they lived hundreds of years. So they set up each one, and that's why we know that the Egyptians weren't first compared to the other places. DMT is produced by the body. Same people believe it's produced by the pineal gland. Oh, I've not heard of that. Sorry, but well done. Thank you for enlightening me. And can be activated with meditation. It's also a drug. Okay. Not sure how they turned it into a drug when it's naturally in your head. That's a really good question from Brown. Because if you watch, and I hate these sort of things, but when you start hearing that, even celebrities, very high up celebrities, have the foreskin of children mixed to drink or eat or something like that, because they believe it's making them younger, you then got to wonder how they get that drug that's inside your brain if they're doing that to children. So, yeah. Can I ask if I'm on Twitter? No, I'm not. 20 characters wouldn't last me, because I waffle on, or however many is on Twitter. But my videos in block, if you're interested, and my live chats, all go onto YouTube under Our True History. So, a lot of people, I get messages from people on YouTube that stick it on when they're driving and stuff and listen to me and probably fall asleep and crash. But how come the Egyptians, yeah, I read that. Sorry, sometimes these look like they're repeated because I'm behind on messages. People ask the same question again, thinking that I'm ignoring them. Brown's replying to someone saying that I like to talk about the comments rather than just skim over them, so it takes me a while. Yeah, I do apologise for that, but I know, this is what I would like to listen to, as opposed to, someone skimming over it. What do you think about the jinns? In what do you mean, what do I think about them? So, you mean, do I believe they're real? Yeah, I mean, they're to me, they are just another light entity that's not the same as the ones that join with us. There is a war between the jinns and the normal, I call them normal light beings, the ones that join with us. We know that from priests and things where they have to exorcise a jinn out of someone, and they take in their spirit guides, in other words, more light orbs and light energy beings. So, yeah, I think the jinn, and it's a very old, the jinn it dates back a long, long time. I think it started in Arabia, the first mention of them, and they're not, they're not very, supposedly they're not very nice, but they're the evil ones. NN's wrote, I've got to go now, sorry. That's okay, but these will be put onto YouTube if you're interested. Thoughts on who controls the elite at the top of the pyramid? Anunnaki, Reptilians, Lucifer? It's a good question. That's from trying to read, sorry, something 980. So if Marduk and Ayana stayed, then they would be the people, I would say, that's pulling strings. If they didn't stay, I have heard, but not enough, I have heard that there's the Reptilians that are running the show, running our elites. Lucifer, if you go by the ancient texts, Lucifer was Anzu, who was the grandson of Alalula, who led the rebellion from Mars to Earth. So the Lucifer side of it, I wouldn't, say it was, but, so it could be either the Anunnaki or the Reptilians. I hear Area 51 is a place they harvest. I won't read out just in case Google, because I put this on Google. It starts with Adrena. Area 51, as you probably know from the past, had at least 7 layers, and each layer they dealt with something different. I've done a video on what they deal with. But to do with that, they do on one of the levels. Forgive me if I can't remember exactly which level, but it's one of the very lower ones. They do with cloning human bodies, and not eyewitnesses, but whistleblowers have said that in one of the levels, there's always people screaming as if they're being hurt or whatever. So yeah, it wouldn't put it past them absolutely at all. To be doing all sorts of stuff to humans. Corey's wrote, other entities of intelligence exist, period. Yes, I totally agree with you. Chops wrote yes back to that as well. Who here believes in underground vile lizards type 1 through to 3 survived mass extinctions? That's from Corey. So as I've mentioned before, there's the sort of the Draco reptilians that people are aware of. Then you've got reptilians that are not the Dracos, but are also out on their planets. But then you've got the ones that supposedly were evolved after the dinosaurs died out. Now, obviously, if you watch my videos, you'll see that I believe that dinosaurs didn't all die out 65 million years ago. But let's just say 65 million years ago, the reptilians did evolve into a species. Now, there is stories that there are underground, and they fly in spaceships, so they're more advanced than us. My only worries of the underground things is, we fire rockets and missiles, and I mean, how many times have you seen test explosions and stuff? I don't know. Have they come up and said stop doing it? Possibly. We know that the nuclear weapons have been disarmed by UFOs. So could that have been them doing that just to stop us? Living underground would be a worry to me, but that's just my take on it. Corey, and cloning centers with consciousness transfer capability, scary shit. So that's I'm guessing you're referring back to the Area 51 where they can transfer consciousness. Yeah, I mean, I'd heard about, I've told this story many times now, but I heard about the contactee that was with a grey where they transferred the soul or consciousness or spirit or entity, whatever you want to call it, to another cloned body. And that was a long time ago I heard that story. So I know that if that was a long time ago and that was real, then yeah, the Americans are certainly doing it. And, there's no point in them cloning a body if they don't have the same memories as the person that they're cloning. There's no point. Because, if they're doing it to deceive us, and by having a clone because the other one's dying, which is probably the case, then, we'll catch out that person, ask them a question about their past. So, Area 51 more than likely does transfer, the light energy being. Scrolling down. Brown has wrote, imagine if it was admitted openly to the public knowledge, the fact that they clone and transfer people's consciousness. Yeah, it would be. But then again, looking at the amount of people now, and forgive me for saying this, but wearing masks out, walking along the street and stuff, and we know masks don't work. I don't think many people would care. Just scrolling down, Creatines wrote, it's not just a drug we produce, DMT, plant produce. We just have so much toxins, we need help from the plant. Yeah, I mean, what we put in our body from, what people make, even the GM, genetic modified food now isn't, yeah. Corey's wrote, there are 4 types of clones. I've not heard that before. I know they can, well, if you're referring to the ones where they clone from a younger, like when, for example, Corey Good went to Mars to do his 20-year, Moon and stroke Mars, 20-year service, for the secret military complex. His consciousness was transferred back to a younger cloned body of himself, and then he was transported back in time to about 15 minutes after he left. So I'm guessing that's what you're referring to in terms of different types of clones. And if I'm wrong, let me know. Just scrolling down. The Grey they interviewed said they were spiritually immortal and they don't need bodies. Well, yeah, I mean, if you take it that the light energy beings enter them as well, then yes, technically they would be immortal if they didn't cross over to the second plane. If they stayed around, then yeah, they'd be immortal. Corey's wrote, they use bodies to visit the third realm, aka the physical. Yeah, that's User 9 has wrote, are Dinosaurs real? So I'm not sure what that means. Are dinosaurs real? I think dinosaurs were real, yeah. And I think they lived up till, well, certainly 2,000 years ago, because it says it in the Bible about the behemoth, and the Ica stones and the I've forgotten the name of them, but the Mexican ones, figurines, terrible pronunciations. They totally point to the fact that the dinosaurs were still around. Just scrolling on. There's a couple of people chatting to each other. Users replying to someone saying, did they ever exist? Yeah, I think they definitely did. Yeah, just look up the Ica stones and then the I'm doing it again. going to hurt myself trying to say it, Akarimbo figurines. And, you know, when you realise there's 40 odd thousands of those of each, and, you know, they depict dinosaurs that when those stones were found, we didn't even know about until after that. Then you have to say, oh, okay, you know, and there's humans fighting or when I say humanoids, because it could have been the Anunnaki, fighting, or the giants, Nephilim, whatever, fighting these dinosaurs and stabbing them. Then you got to kind of say, yeah, dinosaurs did live a lot longer, and we probably wiped them out just as we do with everything. And I'm now up to date with the questions, and I am also out of time on my video. So I'll stick this on YouTube, might be tonight. So if you missed anything, go back. But also the other live chats are also on YouTube along with the videos, and they're in blocks of 50 on YouTube as well. So, Corey's just wrote something, but I am out of time. So, yeah, I'll stick this on YouTube. So, thank you very much, and keep watching my videos. All right, take care, everybody. Bye. Bye.